Can we take something if it's written in third person and transform it to first person, or is that too much?
No. But I'm glad you mentioned that. There is something I don't have in my handout, but if you go to the AFA web page, which you all know how to work the interweb, right?
Internet.
I'm old. They have these things called web pages. If you go to the AFA webpage, and they have a document called the Guidelines for Ethical Use of Literature. And they lay out all of the what you can and can't do. Because there's cutting, which is legitimate. There's creative cutting, which gets a little closer to the edge of, I don't know if this is ethical. And then there's some things that you cannot do. You cannot, for instance, change the gender of a character. Because I have a hard time playing a man, you might say. And so if I just turn this person into a female, this would be so much easier for me to do this characterization. And the words are kind of ambivalent, they can go either way. And so no one would ever know, you can't do that. So there are limitations on what you can do with cutting. And I think changing something from third person to first person would cross over the line of what's ethical use of literature. But you should definitely familiarize yourself with that document. Truth be told, you can take some liberties and probably not get caught. But then you're kind of cheating, and if you did get caught, wouldn't that be stupid? You know, you feel like a jerk. Play within the rules of the game, and maintain your integrity. You're cutting corners, and especially when it comes to ethics, all of a sudden it's a slippery slope. Other questions? These are good questions. You're all raising good stuff. Please, oh yes, good question.
How much freedom do you have to move around on stage? Because I noticed with the duo, they move around a lot.
Yeah, that's a good question. Judges vary on this. The event description, which I might as well just give you this and instead of keep referring to it. Judges have different opinions on this. And some of the judges who you run into, if you could just pass those that away and give one of these to Boyd, seriously.
Thanks.
Some very traditional judges which would say there should be almost no movement in terms of moving around. He would say you might have like a one-step box that you could do, something like that. People have started to push that line, and so lots of other people are really pushing it and moving around a lot. I think, again, go back to the text, go back to the literature. Does it call for movement? I mean, let that be your guide, and know that some more traditional judges may hammer you for it. They may say, oh, you're moving way too much. And you can decide whether you want to take that risk or not. And when you get more experience, you often get to know certain judges, like this person's a real traditionalist and I have to maybe pull it in a little bit, whereas this person really loves you to live outside of the box and do crazy stuff where I might push it further. But usually it's minimal movement. In duo, specifically, it says minimal movement is allowed. And that creates the question, what does minimal mean? And I've seen at Duo Nationals a couple of years ago where they're in a giant auditorium. It's a final round, and you're in finals. You're at the national championship tournament. This is like, pull out all the stops. Where the two performers actually left the stage that they were on, circled the auditorium, going different ways, passed each other in the back, and came back on stage. Some judges had a problem with that. That was way beyond minimal movement. They made that choice, bless their hearts. They were there in the final round. They were going to do what they wanted to do and live with it because that's what they wanted to do. And again, it comes back to you at the end of the day being happy with how I've chosen to perform this, even if a particular judge may not like it. But the easy answer to your question is, it's not absolutely defined by the organization. I mean, so you kind of have to decide. But I've seen people do lots of movement, and I don't get why. As I watch their performance, I'm like, this seems to me like you're moving to move, to try to push some envelope and maybe go, oh, wow, that person's I've seen other people move, and I get it, and it works within the context of the literature and their performance of that literature and the theme that they've laid out. It works 100%. I love it. So I mean, for myself as a judge, I'm open as long as it seems to be motivated by the literature. There's a reason for this happening. Those people who are more traditional about it would also argue, and I think it's a good argument, that if the character is walking in the piece, that walking is easy. We do it all the time. Most of the time I don't even fall that. But to do that within that tighter realm, if they say you've got to live in this little 2-foot by 2-foot box, to create the illusion of walking effectively while not walking is so much more challenging. And it would give you extra props for doing that, for creating this illusion, and as an audience I'm saying, wow, she's walking, but you're not walking. So there's just lots of different ways to think about it, and sometimes the overt movement, it's more challenging to suggest that through less overt movement, but we get the same idea, she's walking, and that's the important thing for what the literature tells us. Is that doesn't really. I know you want an answer. You can move, you can. It's your interpretation of the literature. Talk to your, do it for your coach and see what they say. You're Westchester?
Cedar Crest.
Cedar Crest. Tim's an open-minded guy. And he'll probably tell you the same thing I do. Anyway, yeah, I mean, if you look at the event description that I've given you, they do answer that question about the selection or selections that you asked about before. The primary focus is on the development of the story. There's very little there. People will tell you there are all kinds of rules to these events. Those are the rules, that event description and the ethical guidelines. They